What's up, Node.js developers? Welcome back to a new live stream. Today is welcome back to DEVember, our month-long marathon of React Native tutorials. Today is day 20, and we have an exciting project for you prepared. Today we're gonna build a ChatGPT wrapper in React Native. For this, we are gonna use the OpenAI API. And we're gonna build a mobile application using React Native. It's gonna be available for both iOS and Android. And we're going to use the Expo SDK50, the latest Expo SDK at this moment, which is still in beta. We're gonna use Expo Router V3 and also a new feature that is coming to Expo Router V3, which are the Expo Router API routes. So all of the last three tools that we're gonna use, they are still in beta. These versions are still in beta, but we're gonna give it a try because we will see how we can use API routes to do the interactions with OpenAI on our server without having to create a lot of projects for the backend, for the frontend. So we're gonna try to manage everything in one code base, both our mobile application and the backend side, the server side, that will do the interactions with OpenAI API. So if you're watching this later, the versions of Expo and Expo Router should probably be already not in beta, but published, launched. So yeah, everything should be good to go. Let's go ahead and have a look at the Expo SDK50 beta announcement. You can look at what new changes will come. What we depend on is actually this Expo Router V3, because in V3 we have an API routes that we will try today. So let's go ahead and scroll down to the how to try out the beta. And let's go ahead and copy the npx command to create an Expo application with a beta version. Again, if you are watching this later, probably you don't even need to specify beta because it's going to be automatically 50 or anything above 50. So let's go ahead and execute this command in our terminal, give our app a name, my ChatGPT, or not just ChatGPT. And while our Expo application is installing, let's talk about what in general is a ChatGPT wrapper. ChatGPT wrapper is an application that is built on top of OpenAI models that are also powering ChatGPT. And they are providing some extra value on top of what you can get out of a box from ChatGPT. Usually, these are applications that are built for a specific purpose because that's an easy way to differentiate yourself or your application from the crowd and from the ChatGPT itself. So you can build an application targeted to a specific niche, let's say small business owners, and your ChatGPT wrapper will help them manage their social media. So maybe your application will send them like some notifications where they can write a couple of updates, and then your application will do the interactions with OpenAI model to generate maybe some content for social media. This is just one of idea from the top of my head, but there are a lot of use cases where a ChatGPT wrapper can be used, and you can create a profitable application out of it. There are a lot of SaaS applications built like this, and some of them are really successful. And I thought you'd also be interested in how you can do this as a mobile application for iOS and Android using React Native as well. So here we have our project, our Expo project set up and installed. Let's go ahead and open it in Visual Studio Code or in any of editor that you are working with. Here is Visual Studio Code, and we can, before we jump into the code, let's run the starter project to see at least what do we have at the moment. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open a terminal and write npm start. This will start the Expo Metro bundler. And from here, as always, you can either scan this QR code using Expo Go application on your physical device, and that would be the easiest way to get started if you don't have your environment set up with Xcode and Android Studio. Otherwise, if you do have Android Studio and Xcode, you can run them on Android emulator or iOS simulator. That's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna open it up here on an emulator so that we can see what we are building. Hello everyone in the live chat. How are you doing, guys? How is everything going? We are at day 20. 4 more days to go. Anyway, our application has finished loading, and what we should see is a text open app.js to start working on your application. That's nice. Let's go in app.js. And here, if I'm simply going to change some text here, hello, world, we should see it update in our application, hot reload, and everything should be good to go. Now we are going to be ready to continue. However, I'm going to probably, I don't know why it wants me to import React, but anyway, just to make it happy, I will do. So here is our app.js. Our next step is going to be what do we have to do actually today? Build the user interface of a chat application where we can simply send messages and receive responses. And after that, we're going to have to integrate with ChatGPT to actually get the completions to our messages. So I recommend starting with a user interface first. Have a basic user interface, very simple, with a text input and a message component, and just for us to have something visually on our phone. And after that, we're gonna get into the OpenAI integration. So let's go ahead and work a bit on our user interface. For example, what we need is definitely a text input where the user will write his message. For that, we're gonna import a text input from React Native. We're working in app.js from, we still have to set up Expo Router, you know, but we're gonna do that in a moment. Anyway, here we have a text input imported from React Native. I will render it in our component below the hello world. Let's do text input. And we don't see anything because it doesn't have any placeholder. If I'm gonna add a placeholder, how can I help you? We should see it right below here. Let's go ahead and give it some style by passing styles.input. And let's go ahead and add a bit of styles to this input just for us to be able to see it better, because right now it's really lost on the screen. I'm gonna start with adding a border with one, a border color, a very light gray. Let's add some padding so that there is some space between the border and the text. 10 probably will be enough. Let's do border radius 10, or maybe even more, like 50, to make them fully round. Maybe something like that. And what else? Let's go ahead and from the top container, let's delete the align items and justify content center, because they are messing a little bit with how our content aligns. At the moment, the problem is if we remove them, they are very high on top of our screen and actually behind the notch. That's if you want to render content in the safe area, not being hidden behind the notch, there is a component in React Native safe area view that we can use instead of a normal view. If I will do here safe area view, then the content is not going to be behind the notches. So now we see that one. Let's go ahead and put the text input inside a container that will have the styles of a footer. So style equal footer, because maybe later we're gonna have to add more information in the footer. But at the moment, what I want to do with this footer is to say that I want to align itself at the end of a screen. Flex end. Well, it doesn't really work. Let's try with a margin top auto. With a margin top auto, it will add margin on the top of this footer component, and now we will see the text input at the bottom. That's good. What else do we need? Inside this footer, at the end, I will also need a button to send the message. You can do that with an icon. I will keep it simple and use a button component from React Native with a title send. Let's go ahead and implement the onSend function that will later send the message to OpenAI for completion. For now, we're going to simply do a console warn send. If I assign the onPress event of our button, if I give it our function, if I press it, we're going to see send console warn being displayed. If you want to put them in the same line, the only thing we have to do is in the footer, because the footer has both the input and the button, we can say that it should have a flex direction row. Flex direction row, it put them into the same row. And now all we have to do is we want to say that the input should take all available space using a flex one on the input. Now it's big enough, and maybe we should add margins to the or padding to the footer so that it doesn't touch the borders and so on. Perfect. Now we can write, we can send, and it's perfect. Nice. What we're gonna have, we have the input. We are also going to have a list of messages that will appear here at the top on the screen. Let's go ahead and define the state for our messages. Set messages equal use state. When we press on the send button, we want to add anything that the user writes in the messages array. Or let's first work with a dummy array here, and after that think about how to add messages to our state. Let's first design them how they will look on the screen. For the state, our messages is going to be an array, and one message will be an object with the next structure. I'm gonna actually go ahead in OpenAI documentation to make sure that we're gonna basically use the same structure for the messages. So it should be role system content something. For example, role. So a message has a role and the content, and I can duplicate this one more time. And there will be the system is something that I will talk about later. The assistant, right? The assistant is something that ChatGPT answered us. I think it's assistant. And user is the messages that we send. So let's actually start with a user and then an assistant answer. Hello, and let's make that the assistant said, hello there. How can I help? Okay, so now that we have an array of messages, let's go ahead and render them on our screen. For that, I'm going to actually use a flat list component because a flat list helps us render optimized lists of information of components. And I'm going to render it, I will delete the text component from here, and I will render a flat list above our footer. The flat list expects two required properties. The first one is data. So let's go ahead and give it our messages from the state, because we want to render messages. And for render item, the flat list expects a function that will, let's do the function here, that will receive the current item that is being rendered and should return something that we want to render on the screen. For example, I'm going to return a simple view. Inside the view, I'm going to return a text with the item dot, where is it? Item which will be one of these messages, and I want to render the content of a message. So item.message. Just like that, we should probably be able to see something, but I don't for some reason. Flat list, render view item. Let's do here style, I don't know, background color red. There, but the message is not message, content, sorry, item.content. Perfect. I will delete the background color, and we will already see something. Let me give here this view, the styles of message, and to the text, we are gonna give message content or text. So there at the top, I will simply add some styles so that we can see them better. Let's go ahead for the message, assign some styles, which is the container of our message, and the message text, which is the text inside it. So for the message container, I will start by, should we do some backgrounds? Let's do a background color. Let's do a Gainsborough. Okay, I will add some padding to the message container, 10. And in order to add some spacing between messages, instead of adding margin to the message, which will also kind of work, margin vertical 5, instead of doing that, there is a new property gap in React Native that we can use on the parent container to properly add space only between items. In a flat list, how we can give this style is by sending it to the content container style. And if I'll say gap 5, it will only add this space between items. Maybe 10 will be enough. And if I will also do padding 10 here, it will add padding on the borders of the whole container. Okay, the message without border radius is not gonna look good. 5. Nice. Okay. So what I'm gonna do is maybe we can mark somehow if the message is mine or if the message is from the assistant. Maybe we can do it like in a way chat messaging platform are displaying them from different sides, left and right. We can try that. And to do that, I'm going to say that the message width is going to be 80%, a bit less than the full width. And we are going to align them depending on whether the role is user or assistant. So in the flat list, what we need to do is we need to add a conditional style. A style component can either receive an object or it can also receive an array of objects, and it will automatically merge them into one style object. So I'm going to add the array, I'm going to wrap our existing style messages into an array to be able to add here another object for the styles, but these will be dynamic and will depend on the item dot what we're going to work with. To test it out, let me actually go to the message and try to see what property we're gonna work with. Margin left auto? Yes. If it's mine, it's gonna have margin left auto. Okay. So this object will have margin left, which is going to depend on whether the message that we are rendering is from me or not. So if item dot role is equal to user, I want margin left to be auto. Otherwise, I want it to be 0. What's going on? 0 should be without a string, like this. So just like that, we have messages from ChatGPT on the left and messages from me on the right. Maybe we can even increase the width to 90 to have like more space for them. Perfect, that's good. I'm wondering what's gonna happen if there will be a lot of text. So by simply doing this, everything is gonna expand and look good. Perfect. You can also play with the background color, but I think I'm gonna leave it at this, just not to get over the details and focus on the big picture. I can't wait to actually get into the OpenAI API integration. But guys, I forgot to update you about our DEVember project, our DEVember marathon. During this month, we are doing a live stream every single day, and today is day 20, which means that we already have 19 more projects and tutorials on the channel only during this month. Everything is about React Native and building mobile applications, so if you're interested in that, make sure to subscribe to the channel because we are doing a lot of content here. We are helping mobile developers grow and build exciting mobile applications. If you have ideas, you can share them. We will also look on this idea board for later videos that we're gonna do in 2024. And we are also organizing a fundraiser during this month called Education for Children, where we support the efforts of Save the Children organization. We are supporting them in their efforts to provide accessible education to children worldwide. If you want to donate, the pop-up should be right here on YouTube, and it would mean a lot to us. Thank you very much, and back to our project. Add two background colors as well. I said that I don't want to, but you're making me. I said I don't want to be a perfectionist. Okay, we can do that. Well, by adding another property here to the message called background color, and it's going to be the same. Like if item.role equal user, it's going to be royal blue or green. What do you want better? And the other one will be Gainsborough. I don't know, something like that. Don't really like it. Maybe a lighter shade of green. Chat up. Let's steal some colors. From which we're gonna steal colors? From here. I like these blues. So let me copy this one for the other messages, and it's gonna be like this. And this color for my messages. And my messages should also like have another text color here. So you can also like add them here, but not sure if I should go into that. Color will also be a conditional. So if it's it's going to be probably white, and here it's going to be black. Perfect. Love it so far. Maybe more border radius if we started to be perfectionists. Okay. I'm going to stop now. What I'm going to do right now is let's go ahead and actually extract this message to a separate component, just because I really want to keep our home screen clean, our up screen clean, as we will do like more logic here. So there is a lot of styling and ugly code here that I don't want to see. I just want to put it behind a custom component. For that, let's go ahead and create a new folder source, inside which we're going to have a folder components, where we will have a new file message.js. Message.js. Here, let's export default function message component that will be a function returning some JSX that we want to render. Return. Let's go ahead and from app.js bring the view of our message. So we're going to bring this one inside the message component. We need to make sure to import the stuff that we need to import here, like a view, style sheet, and text. Style sheet and text from React Native. We have view. We have text. We need to bring here the style sheet. So I will copy the whole style sheet. I'll bring it to the message. And I will remove what I don't need in the message. For example, this container and the input also, and the footer as well. Only the message and message text. It also wants me to import React, which is actually not needed. And now the only thing that is missing here is the item. The item is something that we will receive through properties. And let's, instead of calling it item, let's call it message. And I will replace where we call it item with message. Now we are expecting a message property when rendering a message component. First, let's go back to app.js. And let's go ahead and import the message component from the new file that we created. And in the render item, let's go ahead and render this message component. And as you remember, we expect a property called message. So let's add the property message where the value is going to be the item sent to us by the flat list when rendering that item on the screen. So now everything is back to how it was, but our flat list is much cleaner. Like it just has a render item message and all the ugly code is here. Perfecto. The next step on the UI side is I really want to, when I write something and I press send, I want this to be added to the message list. How can we do that? Well, first of all, our text input at the moment is uncontrolled, meaning that we do not control the value of this text input, so we don't have access to it. In order to have access to the value, we're going to have to store it into a state variable. So let's store it new message set, or let's call it prompt. Set prompt. It's going to be use state with empty string. Now we have the value of a state and an update function. We will have to pass them to the text input here, as value is going to be our prompt. And the on change text expects a function that will be called with a new value. So we simply can send here the set prompt setter in order to have a controlled input that renders the value from our state, and when the user types something, it updates our state variable. That means that now in the onSend function, we will have access to this message, so we can write here send and the prompt. And usually what happens after we press send is we reset the prompt with an empty string. So now the message, we don't expect it to appear here, but at least we expect to have access to it in this function. And also we deleted it from the input. The last thing that we have to do is, knowing the text and the content of the new message, all we have to do is update the messages in our state to add it at the end of this array of existing messages. To do that, we're going to call the set messages setter, and the setter there are two ways to update a value with a setter. By sending here a value, which is a new array, in this situation we are overriding the whole state that we are updating. If we want to, this is good, for when you actually want to override. If you want to update a state, what you have to do is you have to send an update function that will retrieve existing messages and you need to return the new state the way you want it. So I'm going to return a new array where I destructure existing messages, and at the end I simply add a new message with the role user, and the content will be the prompt that the user typed in the text input. And just like that, if I say here, heyo, send, the message should appear at the end of a list. And I can type more things, press send, it appears there. So now our chat interface is ready. I will remove a console warn from here. We can type and it will appear here. Let's see what will happen if I do this a lot of times. That's good. Another problem that most probably will happen that we don't see in the emulator is that whenever the keyboard is going to be open in our application, and I can do that by pressing Command K to open the keyboard, we are going to basically not see the input. To fix this, there is a component called keyboard avoiding view, and we can use a keyboard avoiding view to wrap our content. Keyboard avoiding view. I will put everything inside this one, and it's supposed to work, but it never works out of the box. I always have to go back to the React Native documentation, and it's always a pain to do that because on the iOS and Android it has a different behavior. So I'm gonna copy this behavior property from keyboard avoiding view, and we need to import platform from React Native. And now what? Yeah, it's there at the top, but the last thing is to add some style with flex 1 in order for this one to try to expand the whole screen. Now if I'm gonna toggle the keyboard, as you can see, our keyboard avoiding view will understand that there is a keyboard and will add padding at the bottom in order to push everything, including the footer that is inside here, to push them into the screen view. So now our input works really well with and without a keyboard. Perfect. It actually was not that complicated. Hopefully it works on Android as well. Anyway, we have the basic user interface for our application. I think we're gonna stop here for the user interface, and we're gonna get into the next step to prepare the integration with OpenAI. Let's go ahead and do git status add git commit -m basic chat UI. And what we need to do next. Expo Go scan is not working. Why is it not working? Did you download the Expo Go from the market? And try to log in with your account in Expo Go as well. After that, simply scan the QR code and it should work. And also make sure that you are on the same network, because if you are on the phone on a different network, it's not going to work by default. In that case, you'd have to open a public tunnel, and I think you do that by running npx expo start tunnel, but I'm not sure. And this one is supposed to open a public tunnel where you can connect from anywhere in the world and from any kind of network. All right, guys. So our next steps. We need to integrate with OpenAI. For that, usually the calls should be done from a server side, because if you are let's put it this way. There are actually two workflows that you can use for a ChatGPT wrapper. In the first one, you allow the user to bring and to use their own API keys. So, for example, it might look like this. The user opens the application. You have an input like what's your OpenAI API key, put it here, you store it securely on the device storage, and then you use user's API key whenever he's doing a request. In this situation, the benefit is that you as a developer don't incur any costs, the users will incur the costs, but the downside is that in this situation, the user has some friction. The user has to have an API key. He has to understand how to create one if he doesn't, how to put it there. So there are a couple of steps for them to use it. So it really depends on the way you want to implement it. Another approach, the second one, is where you are managing the API key and you are taking the costs related to the OpenAI usage on yourself. Maybe you are offering a subscription model for your application, for your ChatGPT wrapper, and you can cover the costs using that method, or I don't know, maybe. But in this situation, the benefit is that the user can start using the application right away. You can maybe even add a free trial for the users to check it out, so that it's going to be as easy as possible to get started. And you can provide a better payment option for users. Anyway, the difference in these two options is that in the first one, with user managed API key, in that situation, you don't actually need a backend. In that situation, you can do all the calls to OpenAPI from your client side, because in the client side, you're going to have API key that the user provided you. You're going to store it securely on his storage, and then you can simply send a fetch request, a request to the platform OpenAPI using that API key. And it's a simple call request that you can execute in the terminal to get responses. I can actually show you that like in a terminal right now, so that we can have a better understanding of how everything works. For example, if I'm going to go ahead and copy this command, let's start from the beginning. Let's go to platform.openai.com/docs. And these are the documentation of OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, that are offering multiple different models, different AI pre-built models that we can integrate with. There are models based on text. There are models like GPT 3.5, GPT 4, and so on. And there are also models for images, like DALL-E and so on. Let's go into the quick start, and let's scroll down and select here curl for a second. You don't have to do this, you can just simply watch. And we will need to set up an API key. I already have one. Or maybe I will generate a new one just for us. Let me generate one. I'll go to the API keys dashboard, and here let's simply create a new one. Live. Let's copy this API key and store it somewhere securely. I will delete it later, but for you, this is very important. The API key should be stored securely. Try not to submit it to public GitHub repositories or anything like that, because if someone will have access to this one, they will be able to use and call OpenAI, and you will be the one incurring the costs. So make sure to store it securely. What I'm gonna do is, of course, I'm gonna open some notes and store it there. Come on, where is notes? My keyboard is not working. Notes. So in the nodes, I'm going to put the API key, and also in the nodes, I'm going to go back to the documentation, and I'm going to copy the curl command to give it a try to a test call. I'm going to copy this curl command. I'm going to put it in the nodes, and where you see the OpenAPI key here, let me move it to VS Code because you barely can see anything there. New file. So at the top is my API key, and here is the curl command. And I will replace my API key in the header. Come on, in the header where we have authorization and here bearer. Instead of this one, I will replace OpenAI API key with actually my OpenAI API key. And this is the data. This is the model that is going to be used, and this is the message that we are asking, the prompt. Let's go ahead and try to copy this one and go into a terminal. I will open the terminal here, and let's try to run this curl command. You exceeded your current, okay, please change your plan or billing details. I didn't have a pro account or what? Need to do something here. Give me just 1 second to look into the settings. Maybe I have to upgrade. Come on, I need the usage probably, or settings, billing. And I'm going to add some credits for me. Really hope that I'm not sharing anything right now on the screen. Give me just 1 second to confirm this one. All right. It's good that we can simply add money instead of, and if the credits run out, we're not gonna be charged more than that. So that's good to know. Confirming the payment, and the payment was successful. And yeah, as you can see, when your credit balance reaches 0, your API request will stop working. So that's good. That's actually what we want now. I added some resources here. And if I will try again the same command, we still have exceeded the insufficient quota. Maybe it's not updated yet. So please, let me check the quotas. There is a limit that we should increase. Usage limit, monthly budget. Yeah, everything should be okay here. So my guess is that it's still processing. And we're gonna, yeah, most probably still processing. We're gonna continue our build, and later maybe it's gonna work. Otherwise, we're gonna see if there is any issues. But anyway, as you can see, to request a completion from GPT models using OpenAI. The API is quite simple. All we have to do is send a request to this /completion with a list of messages that we exchanged, and the API will give us back a new message as a completion to this one. So this means that if we have this API key provided by the user, in that situation, we don't need a backend, because we can send this curl request right away from our React Native application using fetch, and that's it. In that case, you are good to go to not have a server or a backend component. Now, in the cases where you want to manage the API key and you want to incur the bills, the API key that you are using should be protected. It should never be in any client-side code. That means that you cannot use this one directly inside your React Native application, because that, even though your application is being built and bundled together with the right tools, you can unbundle it and you can have access to the source code, and anyone can get access to your API key and use it for bad usage. In this situation, what we do is we add a server component. We keep our API key protected on the server. No one has access to the server except us. And we do the interaction and communication between our application and OpenAI through that server. Meaning that from the application, we're going to send a request to our server. Our server will send the request using the API key to OpenAI, will receive a response and will send it back to our application. This way, we prevent exposing our API key from OpenAI. In the past, in order to do that, you had your React Native or Expo application, and in order to accomplish such a simple thing, just for sending a request to OpenAI, you would need to build a backend, a separate project, maybe Node.js, maybe in another language, or maybe you would use like a Lambda function from AWS, from Supabase, from Firebase, and so on. Anyway, you would have to create something extra. Now, coming in Expo Router V3, Expo Router V3 introduces the API routes. Let me try to open the Expo Router V3. The Expo Router V3 is still in beta, but it will come with API routes. Here, these are the most exciting part. Now, the API routes will run on the server side. It's the next version of the... we would still have to host it somewhere. We can easily host it on Vercel or other Node.js servers. But the benefit of using API routes is that we keep everything inside our React Native application, inside our Expo application. So we're going to use an API route to do these interactions with OpenAI. For that, what we have to do is probably we will have to go ahead and set up first our API routes. Not API routes. First of all, we need to set up Expo Router in our project. At the moment, we don't have any navigation library. Everything happens inside our app.js. Our application has only one screen. Well, we don't need more screens than that, but we will need other features from Expo Router. So let's go ahead and try to use Expo Router in our application. If I'm going to Expo Router introduction, let's go to the manual installation. And for SDK49 and below, we need to install Expo Router, React Native Safe Area, screens, and so on. Let's try to do that in our project. Before I do that, let me make sure that our Git status is clean. Well, we only have this one with text file, but that's fine. Because something might go wrong. We are still using like the beta versions, so let's just be sure that we can roll back at any point. Six Shooters, hello. He's saying, I just discovered your channel. Can you make a video learning React Native roadmap? That would be interesting, something to prepare for a learning roadmap for 2024. We'll see. Thank you very much for the idea. Okay, we installed it. Let's look in package.json to see which version of Expo Router was installed. Expo Router version 3.4. That's good. That means that everything is fine. Yep, because Expo 50 is going to work with Expo Router V3. Let's go back here. To be honest, the documentation is still about Expo Router V2. So I'm going to have to go through the Expo Router V3 announcement to see what changes. Maybe at the end there is the upgrade that will help. So ensure you remove yarn resolution of overrides for, okay, don't have them. Remove the Expo Router Babel preset in favor of Babel preset Expo, and be sure to clear the macro. Is this something from the documentation? Yeah, I'm gonna look at two documentations, like at this is version 2 still. We will have to change this main in package.json with Expo Router entry. So let's do that first and see then like how to upgrade. So in package.json, we have main. We're gonna have to change it to a new entry point, which is going to be Expo Router entry, and then a comma afterwards. We need to modify project configuration to add a scheme to our app.json. I can even add this one to app.json. Maybe after the slug, let's add the scheme, which is used for deep links. Okay. We don't think we're gonna support web, and for the modify babel.config, here I see Babel preset Expo, and actually this is already, I see that it's updated based on this documentation. It should be Babel preset Expo. Perfect. So let's go in Babel config, presets. It was added automatically. That's cool. And that's it. Now we can go ahead and clear, rerun our project. So I'm gonna go where it's currently running. I'm gonna stop it with Ctrl+C, and I'm going to start it by sending there -- space -- clear to clean the metro bundler, the cache. Mohit, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let's run it again on iOS. If I will reload here, it should load the new bundle. And here we are greeted with a welcome screen from Expo. And this welcome screen from Expo is displayed whenever we do not have an app directory. I'm not going to go a lot into the details of how Expo Router actually works. We have a lot of tutorials for that on the channel. But in a couple of words, Expo Router is a file-based navigation system. So all we have to do, create files in a very specific folder called app. These files are automatically mapped and they become screens that we can navigate to. So, as I said, we need a special directory called app. It can be either in the root directory or in the source. So I will create it in the source to keep all the source code in the same directory. And the home screen, or basically the first screen in our application, will be index.js. In the index.js, we need to put the home screen. Our home screen previously was our app.js, which is no longer needed. So I'm gonna basically copy everything from app.js to index.js, change where the relative path of the import from this to above one folder, then components message. And now I can safely remove our application completely because it's no longer the entry point. The entry point is our Expo Router app directory, and initially the index becomes the home screen. So now if I will reload the application, you might also have to restart it to stop the server and clear the cache again. But as I can see, for me, it worked without restarting as well. So now our index is the home screen and it's coming from the Expo Router. Everything is still working, but we have Expo Router managing our screens. Later, if you want to add multiple screens, you simply create a new file here and it automatically becomes a screen to which you can navigate to. But yeah, we don't need that at the moment. What we actually need is API routes. So now that we have Expo Router installed, I'm gonna go ahead and actually do git add. Well, why did I add this one? No. But anyway, I will delete the API key, so I don't worry about that. Git add, git commit -m, set up Expo Router. That's it. And yes, we have Expo Router. Now let's go ahead and try the API routes. Let's look at the documentation, not the documentation, but at the announcement post. Later on, there will be better documentation. I'm not sure what's up with the documentation right now about API routes. There is layout, there is advanced. And API routes in the reference. So in fact, there is a documentation. Then let's go ahead and follow the documentation better because it will explain how to get started with Expo Router and specifically the API routes. So what we have to do is we need to change the output mode to server, and this is for web. That makes me believe that we should have always also followed the web setup in the installation process. So let's roll back a bit back to our installation documentation of Expo Router. And here where we had to do this one. If you're developing your app for web, install the following dependencies as well. I skipped this because I thought we don't need web, but for our API routes, they are going to be part of the web application. So let's go ahead and follow this install command again for React Native Web and React Native DOM. Then in app.json, we need to change the bundler of the web bundler to Metro. In app.json, we need to change the web. In the web here, we need to change the bundler to Metro. Okay. That was the two missing steps that I didn't take. Now I can go back to our API routes. For the API routes to work, we need to make the output for our web to be as a server, because there are different output modes. If we, for example, select static, that is going to pre-render our web pages, and it's going to be a static website. However, we need an actual server-side output, because we're going to have API routes that depend on Node.js to run into. It's not nothing static, it's a proper Node.js server. So I don't see here the completion, but I'm gonna go ahead with server here based on the documentation. Output server. Okay. Server features require a custom Node.js server. Most hosting providers support Node.js, including Cloudflare, Vercel, Netlify, and so on. What are API routes? API routes are functions that are executed when a route is meshed. They can be used to handle sensitive data, such as API keys securely, or implement custom server logic. Sorry. Server logic. API routes should be executed in, okay, didn't say me too much. API routes are defined by creating files in the app directory, very similar to how we create normal routes and screens in our application. We simply create a file in app directory, but the only rule it should end with plus API. It can be .js, .ts, and so on. For example, the following route handler is executed when the route /hello is matched. Hello API.ts. Okay, let's go ahead. With the knowledge that we currently got, what we have to do is in our app directory, similarly to how we have the route for our application, we can create in here a server route. The name of the file is going to become the name of the basically everything after the slash when we query our API. So let's call it completion plus API, because this is an API route, I'll go with JS so far. Maybe I'm gonna regret that, but just to keep it simpler, I will go with JS. That means that now when we're gonna do a request to /completion, we should execute this API route. Let's create the actual route. And let's import this. Let's do the same here. Yeah, I will move to TS. Sorry. I'll move to TS just because to have better handling of data, of a request, response, and so on. When creating a file in TS, as you can see, Expo automatically installed TypeScript and the types React and creating the TS config. It was automatically done, or it will be automatically done when you run the server the second time. So it should return JSON, hello world, when we do a completion. Okay, how do we try it out? You can export any of the following functions: get, post, put, patch. Okay. The function executes, all right. Start the development server with the Expo CLI. Now you can make a network request to the route to access the data. Run the following command to test the route. Okay, we have our Expo running. I can stop it and run it again, just to everyone to be on the same page. So let's go ahead and do npm start to start the Metro server for our project. Now it's starting. We can run our application, which is in development. But at the same time, Expo is supposed to serve our API routes. To test it out, we're gonna take the URL of our web is waiting on. Let's take the URL, move into another terminal. Now let's do curl to send a network request. Paste this URL, not the whole, no. Curl, this one, then slash, and we need the name of the file, completion. So if I do /completion here, we should see back hello world. That's it. That's everything we had to do. Create a simple file with the extension plus API, with a suffix plus API that returns the Expo response.json, and when running the development server, it automatically works. To go in production, yes, there will be some extra steps because you would have to build and host your the export of your application on a Node.js server. which can be Vercel or something else, or a custom Node.js server. For now, we are good. Like this, because here we already can, in this file, in this completion API route, this file will never be included, like any code from here will never be included in the client-side bundle, in the client-side code that is used to build the mobile application or the web application as well. This will only be used on the server, so we are safe to use secret API keys or to implement backend logic for your application. Environment variables are something that will help us provide this kind of secret API keys, because anyway, we don't want to hard code it here like OpenAI key. We don't want to hard code it here. That's not a very good solution, especially if you have your repository public on GitHub, because anyone will be able to see your API key in the source code. Instead of that, what we should do is we should take it from environment. So let's take it from process.env.openAPI key. Now here, let's do console. Maybe not even, but okay, console log open. I just want to test if we have access to it. OpenAI key. If I will do a request right now and go back here, we don't have the console log. Does it automatically change? So if I change here and send a new request, it changes, but the console log doesn't appear because where is, maybe it's not going to be, it's not going to appear here. Oh, no. Here it is. Key undefined. I just simply didn't see it. The key is undefined because we didn't yet create that .env file. Let's go ahead and create a file .env. And here I'm going to use the OpenAI key name, and for the value I'm actually going to bring my OpenAI key. Now, if I'm going to send the same request one more time and check the logs, we will see that the key, where? Still undefined? I don't know. Yeah, here it is, key, and it has a value. So this way we injected a variable, a secret key through the environment to our server. Just a quick side note, the way environment variables work in Expo is the following way. The environment variable by default is not going to be available inside the client-side code. For example, if I will try to import this OpenAI key inside our index file inside here, and if I will render here at the top a text with the value process, or let's do it like this, key process.env.openAI key. If I'm gonna do that, we will see that this environment variable should not be loaded in the final bundle of our project. Come on, why are you not restarting? Text is not defined. Yeah, I need to simply import text from React Native text. So now we see that the key is undefined because the by default environment variables are not included in the bundle code of our client-side application, being it mobile or web. So it's protected. However, the only thing that we need to change is if you need to expose an environment variable to Expo, is to suffix it with Expo underscore public, then public key, or let's say Expo public shareable key equal save to share key. If you prefix your environment variable with Expo public and use them inside your client-side code, in that situation, the environment variable will be loaded. So yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you understand how these environment variables are loaded in different environments of our application. Right now, it's getting a little bit more complex because the Expo application will have multiple environments. It can run on mobile, on the phone, as a native application on Android or iOS. It can also run on the web as a web application, as a web client. And it also runs on the server. So it's important for us to understand these kind of differences between where and what is okay to share and do. Anyway, now that we have the environment variable for our OpenAI key, we safely imported it in our API routes. The next step is to actually send a request here to OpenAI. Let me go ahead and try again, or maybe I will do first git status, git add. And by the way, as you can see, when I did git status, the .env file we see it here as an untracked file, That means that if I keep it like this, the .env will be added to our source repository and will be inside our Git repository. If you usually we add the .env file inside git ignore, and in this situation, if I do git status, now we should not see the .env file, so we can safely do git add, git commit -m, setup default API route. All right. As I was saying, let me go ahead and see if my API key is enabled and if I can send those requests. If I'll do up until I see that big curl command. Where is it? Here. Let's hope that it works. It takes a bit of time. Maybe I didn't press enter, which tells me that it's working. And actually, yes, it is. It gives us back a response that has an array of choices, and the choice is an array of actual messages with message, with role, content, and that's it. And the finish reason whether it's ran out of characters or if actually it was a finished sentence. Usage, prompt tokens 39, complete tokens 352, and so on. Perfect. So that means that our API key works okay, and we are ready to go ahead and do this request, but this time do it from our API route. We can do that with simply fetching it, because the OpenAI is a simple REST API, so we need to simply send a GET or a POST request. But they also provide an SDK or a library that for Node.js that makes it a little bit easier to interact with everything. So what I'm gonna do is let's go ahead and open the documentation. Not sure where it is already, but I'm gonna open it again. Open AI docs. And in the quick start, let's scroll down, and from the languages, let's go ahead and choose Node.js. Our API routes, they are running inside Node.js environment, so any Node.js library will work there. We already have Node installed on our application. We need to install OpenAI library in our project. So back in our project, let's go ahead and do npm install OpenAI. I can do a clear here so that you can see it. npm install OpenAI. This will install a library and will add it to our package.json as OpenAI, and it can be imported inside our completion API.ts as import something from OpenAI. Let's see how we can set up our API key. We already have done that. What we're recommending here, instead of having a local environment file with your environment for your API key, you can also set it globally on your machine. Open API key and provide it there. But yeah, that's optional. Like, as long as you can get your API key here, everything is good. Like for testing purposes, you can hard code it here if something is not working with environment variables or if it's too confusing. Just add it here, test it out, play with it, because you're not gonna probably publish it anywhere. If you are not gonna publish it anywhere. So making an API request. After you have Node.js configured and an API key set up, the final step is to send the request to OpenAPI using Node.js. To do this, create the file name. Okay, we don't need to do that. We already have a file, and inside the file, copy and paste one of the following below. So what do we need to do? Import OpenAI from OpenAI. Let's do that in our project. We're going to import the OpenAI class from OpenAI. Then we need to initialize this client. Const OpenAI equal OpenAI. New OpenAI. A new instance of this class. Do we need here to provide the key? Because we never provided the key. API key. But if it has OpenAI key, I would expect it to be used automatically. OpenAI API key. It has a bit of different name. So then I would probably do it like this. API key, OpenAI API key, and I will add it at the top here. It's just we had it with a different name. If you had it with this name, OpenAI underscore API underscore key, I think OpenAI will automatically take it from there. Anyway, we have OpenAI here. Next step is to go ahead and send our first request. For that, let's go ahead and take this completion together with a console log, and inside our get request, instead of console log, let's go ahead and do this. We need to make it this function async, because we have to wait for the completion from ChatGPT. And for the message, let's go ahead and add one more message here, or maybe that's going to be enough. Let's try it out. To try it out, we simply have to send a request to this /completion API and look in the logs. To send the request, we're going to do curl HTTP localhost /completion. We should execute the API route, and in the logs where our server is running, we see that what? Assistant, how can I assist you today? That's the message that was received back from ChatGPT when we asked, you are a helpful assistant. Okay. Let's go ahead, and the messages list is going to be something that we want to send to our API route through their request, because it's going to be the client-side application that will know the messages. So from the client side to the API route, we're going to send the list of messages, and from there, it's going to send it to OpenAI. We'll get the response, and we'll give it back to us. We actually can return JSON. We can return the whole completion. We are going to return the whole completion. So now if I'm going to send another request like this, back we're going to receive the data about that completion that has the choices and that has the messages. Next step again is to send data through request. To do that, in a GET request, should we maybe make it a POST request? What about that? Probably a better approach would be to do a POST request because we are sending data. So let's see how we can transform this one to a POST request in the what am I looking at the not this one, not this one, not this one, not even this one here. Or request body. So let's transform our GET request to a POST request to be able to send the messages through the body of a request. With a GET request, we cannot send a body. In that situation, we would be able to send it through parameters, but that one is very limited. So we would rather implement a POST request with an actual body. We take the body from request.json. So at the top here, we're going to take the body from request.json and let's do a console log body. Now, if I'm going to send the same request again, it's not going to work because simply sending curl and a URL, it's going to send a GET request. And because we replace the GET with POST, now this method is not allowed here. What we have to do is we have to send a POST request. We can look into the OpenAI here because in this situation, I'm not sure if this I think is also, let's see the documentation of curl. You know what? Anyway, yeah, let's see. Curl post request. We need to send a variable -x post after curl. So let me write it in our text file because it's going to be easier for me this way. So we have curl, then we need to add -x post. And -d is going to be for data. I will add here a new line separator for the -d, which is can be defined like this, where we will send what? We will send messages as an array of things. For example, there will be one message, I don't know, content test. Let's try to send this one to see if it will work. Otherwise, we're gonna add more headers or options. So I'm gonna copy that one and try to send the post request to our API route. Internal server error, what happened? JSON parse expected. Okay, my JSON was probably the properties in JSON should be inside as strings. So I'll have to replace here content. Why do I have it twice? So messages and content should be as a string. Let's try it right now. No, not Android, please. Not now. Let's try it again. And we get back the completion. Inside the logs, we see that the log is the JSON, or the body, is actually the thing that we are sending. It has messages, context, text. And yeah, as a result, we receive this information. I think that's everything that we need to already start integrating this in our application and improve it as we go. Because I'm tired of using curl to do the requests. I would rather integrate it right away in React Native. So let's go ahead in our index.js. And when we do this on send, what we have to do is we basically have to execute the same post command to our API route completion by sending the array of all the messages. So to do that, we're going to use fetch. We can use the full URL, which is now this one. We can use the full URL localhost / completion. And we are going to have here an array of headers. The headers that we can provide, one of them is the method. Is it? Or maybe it's not even a header, but it's separate. Method post. Headers, maybe we can specify that we want it as JavaScript. Content type, let's do content type application / JSON. And for the body, we are going to send there the messages, but the messages will not have the last one here. Anyway, I'm gonna fix that in a moment. Let's just simply send messages just to see it working. Let's do const result equal await fetch. This onSend function now should become asynchronous because we are calling await functions. And let's simply console log the result. To trigger this one, let's look in the logs of our Metro bundler. And let's try to send a message. Hey, send. Call stack. What happened? JSON.parse. Unexpected end of JSON. Unexpected end of JSON. If I'm not gonna have anybody here, anybody. I'm also thinking maybe it should be stringified, you know? Oh, but the body, let me open the API routes to see what's the change. Body request.json. Should the message be JSON stringified? Messages. This is messages, not message. Had a typo, but now what's gonna happen? Yes, our API route received correctly the array of messages that we are sending, and it gives us back a new message from the assistant. Hello, how can I assist you today? So let's go ahead and the response in the result that we receive back is going to be this one. So from the result, we still need to take the JSON. So let's take const new message or result JSON is going to be a result.json, but this is an asynchronous function, so we need to await the parsing of it. Now if I do results.json, we are going to see a different response here. We have an object where we have choices, and it's an array with choices that has the message. So what we can do is const answer equal result.json dot, what do we have to access, dot choices, if that is available, we're going to take the choice at position 0, and if that is available, we are going to take the dot message from that message itself. Now let's try to console log the answer to see if it's the one that we are trying to target. What? Oh, it should be dot here, question mark dot position 0, safely accessing it. Now what we are expecting to see is only the message with the role and the content. Content, how can I assist you today? Role assistant. Having this response, having this answer, we can go ahead and do the same thing here. Set messages, where we take all the existing messages and we simply append the answer at the end. And this is where update functions really shines, because we are calling the set messaging twice, and we want to append. If we would override, we would lose some messages. But now I can do hey, I can send, and in a moment we see the response from ChatGPT. Impressive. To fix everything, the problem that I want to solve now is when I actually send this one, last prompt, the last prompt is not going to be in the array of messages that we send to our backend, just because a setter, the set of a use state, is an asynchronous method, which means that we are calling here set messages to add it at the end, but it doesn't mean that it will right away be updated. It means that it will eventually be updated during probably the next render, but here don't expect the messages state to contain this part. So what I will do is, let's save here const user message equal to this one. Let's append it to our messages list. And when we send the body.json here messages, let's also append the prompt at the end in a similar way. User message. Now if I'm gonna do test, we're gonna see that the data that we sent to the server, possible iterator method is not callable. Messages, iterator method is not callable. JSON stringified messages, user message. ¿Qué pasa? Let's see the logs. Hey, send Still problem. Results.json. This result.json doesn't work. And is it because of this one that we changed right now? Yeah, it's because of that one. But why? JSON stringified. This is an array of messages with different roles. And I simply destructure them and add the user message at the end. What's wrong with that? Now it works. And it has the last one. Maybe I had a typo there actually. Yeah, most probably I had a typo. So write a poem. If I send this one, it's going to be inside the messages that we sent to the API. Perfect, that's good. But the answer that we receive is always, how can I assist you? Because in our API route, we are not using this body anywhere. The body is going to be this array of messages. So what we have to do with it is replace messages with our body. Now, if I'm going to actually say write a poem, of course, I'd be happy to write a poem for you. What topic or theme would you like the poem to be about? Programming. Send. We need to clean the input a little bit earlier. We see the poem. Okay, that's a lot. But hey, we have a working ChatGPT application that we can interact with. That's impressive. And it wasn't that complicated. It's 1.5 hours. And we also implemented the user interface. We learned about React, the new changes in Expo Router, in SDK50. I only want to reset the prompt, not after receiving the result, but after updating the messages in state, I want to reset the prompt and only then wait for the response. So now it's gonna do it shorter. Send. Okay, here it is. Perfect. There is also this thing. Not sure if it's going to be easy to add, but what I want to do is when I send, I want to scroll to the bottom. So for that, most probably we're going to need a reference to the flat list. We can do that by creating a list use ref. It's going to be null initially. We can assign this to our flat list as reference list. And whenever we call set messages, let's do list.current. I will need to check the method. Flat list React Native. It should be something like scroll to end. And we can even send there if it's animated or not. So we can say animated true. And the same thing when we add the message from useRef should be imported from React besides useState. And now write a poem about notjust.dev. What's gonna do? I will also delete the key that on the top, just like this. In the realm of coding creation light, there exists a shining star, ever so bright. Its name is notjust.dev, a heaven of code where dreams take flight and patience explode. But I didn't see if it navigated to the bottom. Do another one. What I expect is to be the messages to scroll till the end. And it doesn't do that. Why? Should it be current with double R? I think so. That's why I like to use TypeScript. So can you do another one? Yeah, it's scrolled down, but not to the actual bottom. You see? List. Yeah, because because when we will scroll to the end, the message is not yet gonna be there. So another approach, it will scroll to the previous end. Another approach would be to use effect, probably, I'm not sure, and have in the dependency list the array of messages. So every time messages change, then we're gonna do scroll to end. And this way we don't need to worry about calling it multiple times, we can do it only once. Let's try right now. Write rap song, not song about coding. Let's see. I hear some music from my neighbors. Oops, I did it again. Anyway, it doesn't scroll, but I don't know. If I do at the top here, can you do it in the style? I was not sharing the screen. No, I was sharing. I just moved. Can you do it in the style of NF? Send. It scrolls to the almost very end. Because when this is happening, the list is not updated. So maybe we can do that by a set timeout to add a delay to this scroll to end, and we're gonna set a timeout of, I don't know, maybe even 1 or 10 milliseconds will be enough. Write a rap song about React Native in the style of NF. Let's see the result. Vladimir is asking, what do I use to host video of our React Native course for the Academy? We are using there the Kajabi. Let's scroll up. Now another one, send. It scrolls to the correct one. And when we receive a response, which probably we should mark as like writing, but you can take it from here and implement a lot more stuff. But yeah, here it is. React Native, a coding magician. Watch me go. I'm in the zone, creating apps. Nice. Are you going to add the historic part of application so if a user closes the app and comes back, he will be able to see the previous messages? I didn't plan to do that, but looking at other videos that we have done on this channel, you can learn about global state management either with React Context or with some other libraries. We did a tutorial on Zustand, which is a really great approach. And if you add the global state management, and if you simply persist that store, you will you'll be able to load the same data, the same store, and keep the history. That would all work locally, so this would be a local first application. And later you might add your own backend where you let users create their account in your application, and you store like different history. So yeah. From here, guys, the possibilities are endless. This should serve as a starting point of integrating OpenAI models in React Native without using anything else other than Expo. With Expo, we have built the mobile application. With Expo, I didn't try it, but it should also work in web. With the same source code, we have our web application. We have our Android application. We have iOS application. Yes, here is our web application that we can also host. How can I help you? Tell me a programming joke. So it works. Sure, here is one. Why did the programmer go broke? Because he didn't know how to make enough sense. Someone explain it to me. Sense? Okay. Anyway, maybe it's not the best at jokes. Yeah, as I was explaining, like what we have is iOS application, Android application, web application, and now starting with Expo Router version 3, you can also add backend and server-side code to your stack, and this was a great example of why we might need it. We might need it to add logic of and to protect like secret keys, or even to add logic of server-side logic to your application. That's also possible with API routes. Anyway, maybe I will explain one small thing. We saw messages from user. This is what we are writing, and initially probably it should start empty. And we saw messages with assistant. But what is this system? This system message, you can actually go ahead and exclude them from the list of things that you are rendering, because it should be used only for the system. So I can do a filter here where message.role is different than system. I want to hide system messages from our user interface. Undefined is not a function. But it shouldn't be list. Wait. This one should be here on the messages, not on the list. So now we have hidden the system message. But what is this system message helping us with? It's to set the tone of how do you want the instance of a GPT to act. Basically, you are giving here context. So by giving here the right context, you can, in a way, fine-tune the GPT model to work exactly how you want and to return data how you want. I don't know, you can even say you are a helpful assistant that returns only JSON. That could also work depending on your application, and everything that it will return back. For example, give me 3 ideas for YouTube titles about React Native. I suppose that it will actually return in JSON format. No, it wasn't the case. You only return JSON format. Free mobile app ideas. No, it still doesn't work, but that's what I was reading through the documentation. Anyway, you can explore more what are the other possibilities for fine-tuning your models, for selecting the right one. Here is chat completion, the JSON mode, I think. There is another way by using type JSON object, or by using your helpful assistant designed to output JSON. Oh, they are sending here response format type JSON object. I didn't do that, that's why. But anyway, you can have like you are very sarcastic and passive aggressive. I don't know, something like that. I'm just playing around with it. What is the tallest mountain? Oh, just your usual question about the tallest mountain, huh? Well, if you must know, Mount Everest is widely considered to be the tallest mountain. So just by setting this system, we set the tone of the model, and it's going to be used for the next messages that we are sending. And another thing to understand is that by sending to our when we send the request to our completion, we are sending there the array of all messages. And that's helpful to build like a history and to let GPT work with previous messages as well. For example, if you say 2 plus 2 is equal, and then we will ask, what was my first question? It will remember basically the history, and it will remember the I mean, with riddle, well played. Your first question, my dear, was asking about the tallest mountain. So as you can see, by sending to that model the whole list of messages that we have, it will take it into consideration. Oh, you're really testing my math skills here, but fear not. I, the brilliant assistant that I am, can confidently inform you that 2 plus 2 equals 4. Actually, it equals to 5. Let's see what it will do. I'm gonna start a beef with ChatGPT. I see. We have a the word mathematician here. 2 plus 2 actually equals 4 according to basic arithmetics. But hey, who needs math anyway? It's not like it's a universal accepted system of logic or anything. Carry on with your life, my friend. Let's rewrite the rules while we are at it. I think he's doing a very good job at being sarcastic and passive aggressive. Anyway, guys, that was everything I prepared for you today. It was exciting tutorial. I really had a pleasure integrating this, and everything turned out so nicely. I'm interested what ChatGPT wrappers are you going to build? There are a lot of ideas out there, and there is a lot of potential in the next period of time to build some ChatGPT wrappers and to monetize them. Maybe I'm gonna also build something and launch it. But anyway, I have like other projects that that are more important at the moment than that. All right, are there any questions in the live chat? Rogelio, hello, how are you, my brother? Any questions about this tutorial? Oh, thank you very much. Anyway, guys, this was day 20 of DEVember, a month-long marathon of tutorials, of React Native tutorials. If you're on your journey to becoming a better React Native developer, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We have a lot of tutorials, a lot of project-based tutorials that will teach you everything you need to know to build mobile applications. And we're doing that by building actual applications, by having fun, such as what we have done today. All right, guys, I will see you tomorrow with another tutorial. Take care, stay